You may have noticed the model of a human skull behind me. I keep it in my office in imitation of the medieval practice of remembering our mortality, but it is also an interesting entry point into thinking about how we look at and understand the human body. This skull, to the untrained eye, has no sex or gender, no sexuality, no race, no class. But imagine it laid over now with flesh and skin, with hair, with eyes of a certain color in its sockets. Suddenly there are multiple elements to take in and interpret. In this way, I would propose that our bodies are like texts. We read them in much the same way as we read texts. Most of the time, our reactions to others' bodies, their hair color, skin color, build, features, are immediate, and so they feel natural. But think about when you read a text. You read with all of the other texts you've read in your memory or subconscious. You also have data from your upbringing and background. Even if you have no prior knowledge of what you're reading, you're predisposed to read a certain way. And something quite similar happens when we encounter a human body. We read it a certain way. I know many people might feel defensive at this point, and some might say, I don't see race, I'm not racist. I'd like to qualify what I'm proposing here by stating that it is not helpful or exactly fair to judge someone's immediate response or interpretation of another body. If, for example, you read a story and say, this is how I understand it, it really is not useful for me to reply, wow, you're a terrible person, how can you think that? Instead, the helpful and more interesting questions to ask are, why is that your interpretation? What other text does this call to mind? And what strikes the loudest chord in you, and why? So in other words, as we interpret other human bodies, what is important is not immediately a correct interpretation, but one that is self-aware and reflective.